Today we will be talking about attitudes, how they are being formed, and there are certain different theories which we will cover later. So when we talk about the attitudes, we need to understand what they are actually. According to you, you can identify certain different definitions and certain different ideas which you have that you use to understand the attitude by that certain specific behavior of another person, by certain specific action or thinking pattern of another person. That is how you use to assess the attitude of anyone, or you can understand the attitudes of your own self as well. When we talk about attitudes in the concept of social psychology, and when social psychologists used to define attitudes, they used to refer that people's evaluation of almost any aspect of the world is their attitude towards that certain specific thing. So when we are talking about the attitudes, it could be favorable and unfavorable reaction towards certain different situations, and that can be identified in the form of their attitude, we can say, or their evaluation, we can say, towards that certain specific object, that certain specific action, or it could be the social group as well. If we discuss with examples, then we can say that the favorable and unfavorable could be the positive attitude and the negative attitude as well, and these reactions could lead towards some sort of issue, some idea, some object. For example, your attitude towards a mobile phone or some product is going to be your attitude towards that certain object. Then when we talk about the actions, then actions are also going to depict the attitude you are having about certain thing. For example, any sort of behavior you used to do. If you have the hobby of doing hiking or some sort of adventure sport, so that action is going to depict your attitude as well. When we talk about a specific person, for example, if you want to discuss any celebrity or any person around, then that is going to show your attitude towards that specific person. So whatever these aspects are, these are actually going to put forward that what your attitudes are in certain specific domains. And when we talk about a social group, we can say that your attitude toward different ethnic backgrounds, for example Shia, Sunni, or other ethnic backgrounds. It could be about Muslim and Hindus as well. So that is a social group as well. So these are the attitudes which are defined, and we use to understand other people's ideas on the basis of these attitudes. And as we have said earlier, so when we are seeing about when we are discussing all these examples, then you can understand this is the evaluation of what we have in our mind regarding certain different areas, and this is depicting the attitude. Some attitudes are stable and some are unstable. For example, the stable attitudes are which are resistant. For example, if someone follows their religion, then that attitude is going to be quite stable because they are following that because of there are certain different reasons for that. So they are following that in that way. So these are the stable attitudes which are not that much easy and flexible to be changed, and they cannot be modified that easily. When we are talking about the unstable attitudes, then they are going to be very much dependent on the situation. For example, these things may be not that much personally important to the person, that's why they are unstable, or maybe they could be unstable just on the basis that people are not that much concerned about that topic. So if new perspective is going to come across, they can change their attitude towards that thing. For example, if someone wants to buy a new laptop and he is quite interested in doing that, then he is going to have a stable attitude if he has already bought some laptop before and he had a very good experience with that brand. Particularly, we can say he is very much into HP projects or something like that. So it is going to be now his stable attitude that he has already experienced that, and he is the user and the consumer of that particular brand. And when we are talking about the unstable, then we can say that in unstable the person is using the laptop for the first time, and he is looking for a laptop and on the other people's suggestion. So once one friend has suggested the HP product, so he is going to go for that. But another friend, he met or discussed another friend about purchasing a new laptop, and he suggested another brand, for example Dell or Apple or something like that. So if they have suggested that thing, so he didn't have that much knowledge and he was not that much concerned, as he didn't have that much information about that thing. So that is going to be the unstable attitude, because that is varying with the situation and the situations and the circumstances of the things, and also his knowledge or information is dependent on that. Then further, when we talk about the attitudes, we can say that we may hold some attitudes with great certainty, while our attitudes toward other objects or issues may be relatively unclear or uncertain. We can identify this as well with the last thing we have discussed and the last example we have discussed, because sometimes we are very much certain about our different attitudes. This could be true for our religion as well. When children and kids are used to see that their parents are following one religion, they start following that, and in adolescence they just get aware of the fact that there could be other religions as well and they could be following other things as well. So this is the time when they are going to start having questions about their religion. So what is that questioning is some sort of uncertainty about that particular situation or circumstance, and when they are going to question that, if they are going to have justified evidence that what they are following, whatever religion they are following, it is the right choice for them, then it is going to be certain. So attitudes could be certain and uncertain, and in uncertain situation people try, sometimes if they are that much important, they are going to try to make that attitude more certain by having more information about that. You can have certain different attitudes by yourself as well. You can formulate these and you can discuss those different sort of attitudes you used to have about different aspects of your life. Then attitudes can influence our thoughts as well, even if they are not always reflected in our explicit or we can say that overt behavior, even though they are over there because they are influencing our thoughts. When we can discuss, there are two attitudes, the explicit attitudes and the implicit attitudes. The explicit attitudes are which are very much conscious, and we can discuss them, we can share them. For example, our attitude or your attitude about certain different religion, about certain different hobbies, about certain different sport, about a specific person. So these are the explicit attitudes you can say and you can share. When we are talking about the implicit attitudes, they are uncontrollable and sometimes unconscious, and sometimes people are not aware of them, that when they are formulated, and even they don't know that if they exist within them. For example, when we are talking about implicit attitude could be that the follower of one religion, and he has brought up in the environment of that religion, and his family was following that similar religion, but then he was also exposed to the comments and the reviews about another religion which is not that much likable in his culture, or which is not that much favorable for his family. So he might have heard a lot of negativity. There must be a lot of negativity or not so pleasant comments in his mind because he was exposed to them, but these comments or these liking and disliking are not that much apparent. So we can say that it is going to have the implicit attitude, because it is going to have an influence on him even though he don't know that exists, that the hatred for another culture or other ethnicity or another religion is there, but that is going to be implicit because he don't know that, but he was exposed to that, and that is affecting his attitude in the future as well. So this is the difference between the explicit and implicit. When we are talking about the attitudes further, then we can say that it also affects the important behavioral choices. For example, people used to think about different long-term consequences and the short-term consequences as well. It is very much important that we understand how thought processes influence attitude and decision making, because when the person is going to think about the long-term consequences, that long-term consequence is going to shape his attitude, because he is weighing the pros and cons of the things. For example, there is a situation which is written over here, and you can see that situation, that if someone is being encouraged to get the flu shots for themselves or for their kids maybe, so there are certain different factors which are going to influence their choice. So this is how the more information is going to help you to get to change the person's attitude. About this particular example, we are going to discuss another model over here. Morrison and his colleagues proposed this model that where they considered that the future consequences lead to the more positive things that person is going to do. So this particular diagram shown over here is about that flu shot, that the person is going to consider the future consequences of the action, either they are positive or the negative thoughts. Then the positive thoughts are and the negative thoughts could be regret, and that regret is going to make the person to choose vaccination over the regret, because that is giving him the idea that if he is not going to do that, he might be going to regret that decision in the future as well. So now we are talking about the attitude formation, and when we are talking about attitude formation, there is one important thing that we need to discuss over here, that the social learning is the most important concept which is going to influence a person's attitude. And when we are talking about the social learning is the aspect in which people are being influenced by the social environment and the social situations, and that is very much likely when we are talking about the attitude, because attitudes could be shaped by learning, and it could be the modeling, the form of modeling. For example, the person is observing someone else how he is doing that. He could be learning through classical conditioning or through operant conditioning. All the learning principles we are going to discuss over here in this category. And when we are talking about the classical conditioning, as you already know and you already memorize that Pavlov experiment and unconditional stimulus, unconditional response, and the conditioned stimulus and the conditioned response. So those were the principles and those were the main concepts of the classical conditioning. And we can say that classical conditioning is basically learning based on association. For example, when one stimuli is associated with another stimuli, then both stimuli are going to be associated with each other, and they are going to have a stronger influence on the other stimulus, and then we will say that that is a conditioned stimulus. For example, in the unconditioned stimulus, if there is an unconditioned stimulus which is already naturally producing any sort of response, and when you are going to associate that unconditional stimulus with something neutral, some neutral stimulus, some new stimulus, then that unconditional stimulus, when it is going to be repeatedly paired with the neutral stimulus, that a neutral stimulus is now more likely that it is going to provoke the same sort of unconditional response in the person. Then we can say that neutral stimulus is now producing the conditioned response, and that neutral stimulus is now the conditioned stimulus as well. Advertisers and the agents, marketing sales agents used to exercise this classical conditioning principle, because this used to help them in their task, and it is also increase their efficiency and efficacy of their marketing abilities. First, what they do is that they need to know that what are the unconditional stimulus for their audience. For example, when we are talking about some school advertisement, so if the school wants to advertise their school system, then what they can do is that they can unconditional stimulus for that particular audience will be that they want their children to be very brilliant, to be genius, to be excelling in different fields. So that unconditional stimulus, that the pictures of successful kids, brilliant kids discussing a lot of scientific or complex ideas, then that image or that video is going to shape the is going to shape the idea that unconditional stimulus for parents is going to be very much provoking, very much motivating. And when they are going to associate that much encouraging picture or video with the school, with the same school, or with the school system ad, or with the school logo, or with the school or with the picture of the school, then both things are going to be associated with each other, because that unconditional stimulus is now going to be a conditioned stimulus as well. Is going to provoke a neutral stimulus is now going to be the conditioned stimulus, and when it is going to be associated with that unconditional stimulus. Here we can also discuss the example of some products, some beer which is being associated with the advertisement of the female. So this is the audience which is going to consume that product. Then that is the unconditional stimulus. The advertisers have rightly assessed the audience unconditional stimulus, and they have associated that unconditional stimulus with that particular product. So that is going to help them to increase their sales and the efficacy of their product. So when we are talking about the classical conditioning, then we can say that there are two pathways in which they used to act. The first is the direct and the other is indirect. The direct route is that, as you are seeing in the advertisement, that is the direct one, that you are associating the unconditional stimulus with the neutral stimulus, and they are actually associated or paired with, and that is the perfect example of the direct route. Then when we talk about the indirect route, that could be that when the specific celebrity, or when some specific person who is good in their field, or who has some name and fame, then they are being associated with that particular product. For example, you can think about brand ambassadors, that those brand ambassadors who used to promote the product at more than one place. For example, they are not just in the advertisement, but they are also promoting that product at certain different forums. Then what they are doing is that they are actually relating that particular celebrity with that particular brand. So whenever they are actually making the link in the people's mind, or they are making the link in the people's memory. So whenever that link is going to be triggered, the person is going to recall that product which is associated with that particular celebrity. For example, whenever they are going to see that particular celebrity, the brand to which they are representing, or they are trying to market, that brand is going to come into your mind. So that is going to be the indirect route of that attitude towards that. Here you can see the two examples, the two pictures, that how Tiger Shroff is associated with Tiger, and Oppo mobiles are associated with the Indian celebrity. So when we move on and talk about the subliminal conditioning, the subliminal conditioning is whenever some message which is hidden and which is not that much apparent, and that conditioning is going to be taken place. For example, when we talk about subliminal conditioning, we can say that subliminal is something hidden, and subliminal messages used to be over there. In classical conditioning, that occurs in the absence of conscious awareness of the stimulus is involved. So in classical conditioning used to be conscious, and subliminal conditioning is not going to be that much conscious, because person is not aware that he is being presented with something, with some idea, with some picture which was subliminally, which was very much hidden in the thing, and it has provoked that particular attitude. For example, if you watch different controversies about Disney and Simpsons cartoon characters and all those series, so you can understand, and if you figure them out, then you will see that there are a lot of subliminal messages which are being given in all of these Disney movies have been given, and there was a lot of controversy about those messages which were given in those in those cartoon movies and characters as well. So this is how the attitudes is going to be affected. They wanted to provoke racist remarks in the Simpsons cartoon as well, which used to provoke such sort of comments in the children of that age, even though they didn't know that they have been gone through such sort of comment and such sort of gestures towards another and they are those comments were racist, but those were racist and they were unaware that they received those comments. And when we talk about the mere exposure, then mere exposure is person has just been exposed to that thing, but before he could have remembered that he has seen something, then it is going to be removed from there. So that is the mere exposure thing, and it could also lead towards the attitude formation. Another thing that we can discuss over here, illusion of the truth effect, that is very much close to the mere exposure. And illusion of truth effect is specifically when you are going to when we can remember being exposed to the information, it's mere repetition to create a sense of familiarity. For example, if you have came across some product, and after some time you are going to be shown that product again, then what is going to shape your attitude is that you might think that this concept or this thing or this product or this person even was familiar, because you have seen that person before as well. So that is going to have some sort of familiarity effect, which is going to cause you to have positive attitude towards that thing. So then we can say that such attitudes can influence behavior as well, as we have discussed that before, that whatever thing you are thinking or whatever attitude you are having, that is going to be depicted in your actions as well. When you are having some sort of attitude towards certain different thing, then you are going to depict that in your behavior. For example, if you like something, if you like some product, then you are more likely to consume that product, you are more likely to use that product. And even those attitudes are inconsistent in how they are explicitly expected to behave. So these are the different areas how attitudes are being formed. Then in attitude formation, further another category is instrumental conditioning. As you already know that this is the conditioning in which the reward or the punishment or the favorable or unfavorable outcomes are going to work towards how the person is going to formulate that particular attitude towards the different thing. Positive outcomes are going to strengthen the person's attitude, and the negative outcomes are going to weaken the likelihood of that particular thing. Thus, another way in which the attitudes are acquired through the process is instrumental conditioning. Entering new social networks, set of individuals with whom we interact on the regular basis is going to be the one thing. Then these social networks are a lot of different conversations. These could be a lot of different people, a lot of different groups you are part of, and a lot of different individuals you used to meet. So all of these are the social networks, and the interaction with those on the regular basis is actually going to cause you to change to formulate the attitudes, and then it could also help in the modification of certain attitudes. The new networks which are being formed after some time, then those new networks could have the effect on the person's attitude as well, because if they are from the same people or they are going to share the same attitude, then those attitudes are going to be strengthened. But if that new network is going to have some sort of diversity in them, the attitude towards that certain issue is going to be a lot of different. For example, the new networks, we can talk about that when you were shifted from one college to another university, from one college to another college, or from one university to another university, from one city to another city, or even a country, or shifting between college, school and university. So all of these are, if the people around you in your current and in your previous are but from the same communities, share the same attitudes, and your same attitudes are going to be strengthened. But if they are from diversity or divergent attitudes are going to be displayed, and your attitudes are going to be modified in that new situation as well. There is research which was done by Levitin and his colleagues, and they assessed the political attitudes of the students at the University of Chicago. When they were doing that, then they figured it out that there were different there were a lot of diversity in that, and when they were figuring it out, then a lot of discussions about those political attitudes that strengthen the students' attitude towards that. Then these new networks made a lot of new decisions, and those were being influenced, and in that way the group also changed their political attitude towards that, as towards other areas as well. Now let's talk about the observational learning as well. And when we are talking about the observational learning, then we can say that it occurs when individuals acquire attitudes or behavior simply by observing others. As we have discussed already, that in observational learning, person is going to observe the behavior of another person, and his attitude is going to be influenced by that. For example, by just looking at them, or we can say in this this also comes under the exposure of media as well. When the person is going to see other people doing certain things, that people acquire those attitudes, and there are they could be around a lot of objects, there could be advertisement as well. And this observational learning used to take place specifically and specially under those circumstances. It is going to be more strengthened when people think that they are the part of that particular group, or even if they want to be the part of that particular group, then it is much more likely that they are going to act positively towards those objects or towards those people. In this we can discuss the social comparison as well. This social comparison is the tendency of people to compare themselves in order to determine whether our view of the social reality is correct or not. In this way, they used to understand that if we are holding some sort of idea in ourselves, then is it in the social comparison, it is reliable to have, or it is not reliable to have that idea. So they are going to compare themselves with the other people. If other holds the same views, then these views must be right. So this is what the social comparison and how it is going to influence them. In this we can also discuss the social comparison. For example, if people used to think about the concept of or their attitude towards homosexuality, then they are going to socially compare their idea with those of the other people in the society and in their own culture and religion. Then if they belong to a Muslim culture, then they are going to be very much straight about that concept, that they are not going to have some sort of positive comments or positive reviews about that, because they are going to think that most people in their culture or in their society used to think that this is the wrong thing. So that social comparison is going to shape their attitude. And the other thing is the reference groups. The reference groups are usually those groups which used to adjust the attitudes so as to hold views closer to those of others who they value and identified with. For example, the reference group could be that some teenagers who wants to look more cool and who wants to look more of their particular time. So what they are going to identify themselves with those people who they think or who they claim that they are the most coolest of the group. So that is going to be the reference group, and whatever that cool group is going to do, they want to replicate that thing. So that is going to shape their attitude, and that observational learning is going to be more prevalent in that circumstance, that they are going to copy their behavior because they used to identify themselves with that particular group as well. So that was all for today, and if you have any questions you can ask me. Thank you.